welcome to a webinar for skill development. This is your host Leena from Migrant Career Support Trust. So we will have 30 minutes presentation by Kristin, and then we will have 20 to 25 minutes of Q&A. So I would request you to kindly use Q&A panel, not like for the questions which you wanna ask. And if you want to be visible, then raise your hand and we will get you in the video. And now I will welcome Gary, who is the chair of Migrant Career Support Trust, to say a few words. Welcome, Gary.
Hi, Lina. Hi, Kristin, and hello to all the attendees. Thank you so much for coming today morning to attend our webinar. Just a little bit to those people who might be joining us for the first time about the Migrant Career Support Trust. We are a fairly new organization, been in action just for past 1 year. But our objective is to help and support migrants through skill development to settle into New Zealand. It's not only about getting the first job, but also, growing in your jobs. And that's why we say that we are aiming for excellence. That's the motto of our organization. We bring to you different webinars on various aspects of skill development. And today we are very happy to have Kristin Murray, who's a coach, a mentor, and her masterclass, CV masterclass is famous. It's world famous on Facebook. And that's how I caught her. And she has some amazing gems of experience to share with us today. And thank you, Kristin, for hearing us out. She was very proactive and she was happy to come at just my first request. That's very kind of you. I know you're a very busy person with, whenever I call her, she's always in a class and I don't know how you do it. So we are blessed to have her with us today. And so I won't take much time. And Lena, please introduce Kristin and then we take it from there. Just one thing that Lena has said about the structure, I request everyone to put, there's a lot of time for Q&A. We have a good 20 to 25 minutes. You can ask all your questions. Just put the questions in the Q&A panel, not in the chat room. And we will take them one by one. And in case you want to ask the question directly to Kristin, there's a button down there which says raise your hand. So once you do that, we can make you like a panelist and we can see your audio video, and Kristin can also see you and everyone else can see you. So we'll take it from there. So Lena, over to you.
Thank you so much, Gary. So Kristin's passion for building confidence in people through effective coaching to help them see different perspectives and achieve their goals is what makes her motivated, energetic, and driven. An experienced leadership and career coach, Kristin has helped many people progress in their careers by helping them understand how they are able to make an impact. Kristin uses a proven strategy which enables candidates to be able to demonstrate a point of difference not only in their CV but also in interviews. It's not necessarily the best person who gets the job, it's the person who interviews the best. When not busy coaching, Kristin is a busy mom to 2 boys and a fluffy doggy princess called Zoe. Bike riding, traveling, and cooking are favorite pastimes with the family. Kristin has over 20 years of leadership experience, is a certified life coach practitioner of neuro-linguistic programming, and also holds a diploma in business studies, management, and human resource management. Welcome to Migrant Career Support Trust, virtually Kristin. Over to you, Kristin, now. The floor is all yours.
Thank you. Thanks, Gary and Lena, for that lovely introduction. And good morning, everyone, and welcome to my CV Masterclass. So I think the most important thing for me to demonstrate to you today is I'm going to share with you the why. So why is creating a CV with a point of difference, and why is this important? Gary and Lena, are you going to bring up my beautiful slides?
Yes.
So So why is it important to have a point of difference in your CV? And so what I see many CVs, and what the biggest challenge I see with them is the fact that they're very task-based. So not only is the visualization of them not quite right, so they're a little bit messy to the eye, but they're also full of tasks. And I'm sure you all have got a task-based CV. Which is, you know, you saying on your CV that you answer the telephones, that you do some marketing, that you have to build relationships. Whereas what I try and teach you is to show you how to actually present a CV with a point of difference, which is which is showcasing the impacts or the achievements that you have made in your role. Now, the reason why this is important is because it demonstrates to the employer the value that you can add to the role. So today I want you to think about, if you were an employer, what would that look like? So from an employer's perspective.
Yeah, I'm
right?
sharing this now, sorry. Yeah.
Wonderful. From an employer's perspective, I am wanting to bring someone into my organization who is going to add value. They're going to help me shift my business forward. And so I don't need to see all the tasks that they've done. I'm interested in the value that they're able to make. All right. So I think that's one of the most important things. Can I control this, Gary, or can
Yes, you can control. Just check, please. You should be able to control.
No.
No, 1 minute. Let me just. Do you have it handy? Do you want to? 1 second. Do you want to control it, Murray? Do you have it handy? Can you share it from your end?
Oh, yes, sure.
It will be easier for you to manage it. No.
No, you can't. I can't share it.
Okay, so you let me know. Okay, I'll change the slide.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's only a couple slides. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's wonderful. Thanks, Gary.
Yeah.
So the important thing is that if you don't stand out, you're not going to get shortlisted. Now, the example I use for a lot of people is that when I've been recruiting and I advertise for a workflow coordinator role, I received 160 applications across my desk. Now, how are you going to stand out amongst 160 applications? You know, I think that's when you realize that you're in a pool of 160 people, you realize that you really do need to stand out. Now, the first thing is make sure you're always providing a cover letter. If you just want to go to the first slide, Gary, that'd be great.
Sorry.
So. Always provide a cover letter, because that is a signal for it's your sales pitch. It's your sales pitch for people to kind of go, actually, you need to now look at my CV. I'm worthy of this job. I'm skilled in it. I'm able to make an impact. And then they go and read your CV. Now, when recruiters read your CV, it's pretty much 6 to 10 seconds. They're going to take a quick glance at your CV. If it doesn't grab them and encourage them to read further, they're going to put it in the no pile. If your CV does not have a cover letter, and they have specifically asked you to put together a cover letter, it's probably going to go in the no pile. Okay, so what you want to do is you want to prevent any opportunity for the recruiter or the employer to want to put your CV in the no pile. Okay. So you need to stand out. When you put together a really effective CV, this helps build your confidence. And what it does is it gives you certainty around the impact that you're able to make. All right, so you get really clear on the value that you're able to bring. Now, this is extremely important in a competitive market. And in fact, it was already a competitive market. And now with COVID, it's just gone crazy. As I'm sure you're all aware, it's going to be even more harder to try and get shortlisted. So, you know, when you have that certainty, when you're writing your cover letter, it will come across, because you will be very clear in terms of the impact that you're able to make. Now, one of the key things why I tell people to do this is because when you do get down that road of being shortlisted and then being able to be given an offer for a role, it puts you in a much better position to be able to negotiate salary. And because you've already demonstrated to the employer the value that you're going to make. So you're in a much stronger position to actually negotiate or to encourage them to pitch you a higher offer. Okay, next next slide there, Gary, please. So what are employers looking for? Now, employers are time poor. Okay, so they do not have time to be going through mountains of CVs and to really put some thought into it. Okay, so it can be as simple as, does your CV have a cover letter? No, yes. All of a sudden, you're in the no pile if you haven't provided it. The next question could be as simple as, is your CV nice to look at? Is it nice and clear? Is it consistent, right? Or is it all kind of mixed fonts, jutted out, got tables that have, the formatting's kind of all got skewed? If that's the case, it could be a straight no pile, okay? So then once I've shortlisted down to some nice looking CVs, then I concentrate on the content. So don't be fooled by these places that offer a CV rewrite where they take your CV and they just make it look pretty, all right? Because I've seen some people who have spent a couple of $100 doing this, but there's no point if the content in the CV isn't rewritten. So you might get through to a certain stage, but then when they're looking at the content isn't matched or it's not of quality. So once again, you've just wasted your money. Okay, so you want to look at the presentation. It's just like yourself when you go for an interview. You're presenting yourself. Your CV is a presentation of you, and then it's about the content as well. If you were running a business, think about what you want. If I was running a shop, I would want someone who could come in and deliver some great service to my customers, right? Because I need to have customers in order to keep my business moving forward. Now, when I'm looking at CVs, I'm not interested in seeing people with a CV that says that they know how to work the till, right? And they know how to answer emails. I want to know how well they are doing that. I want to know, have they had good feedback from customers? Have they had some positive feedback from customers or colleagues or their manager around their delivery of that service? I want to know. So one of the examples I've given is if I was recruiting for a receptionist. Now, we all kind of know what a receptionist does, right? We know that they answer the telephone, they provide maybe some support to some management, they manage like a front entrance or an office or reception area, they might look after some filing. So if I'm recruiting for a receptionist, I don't need to receive CVs across my desk which are from people who have held reception roles telling me how they answer the phones and they do the filing and they keep the place tidy. What I want to see in the CV is that they've had really good feedback from customers saying that the reception area is always tidy, that they've introduced a new filing system which meant that the reception area was kept tidy and that files weren't lost, that they came up with some more support options for the management team which enabled them to have more capacity in a different area. If I received a CV that showcased all the value that they were able to give in that role, I would go, wow, I want this person. And that's how you stand out. Okay, so think about the achievements that you've had in your role, the great feedback that you've had, and what are you proud of? What were those things that, made you go home and ring your parents or your friends or tell your other half that you're so excited that you did this at work and it was such a great achievement? All those things need to be in your CV rather than the tasks. Okay, so it's not necessarily what you do, it's how you have done it is what the employer wants to know. Okay, that is why they take you through an interview, because that's really drilling into the how. All right, but you've got to remember that how are you going to set yourself from 150 to 200 CVs? Everyone's going to be writing a task-based CV. So if you're writing an achievement-based CV, really showcasing all the great things that you've done, you're going to stand out. Next slide, please, Gary. So how to structure a CV. Now, the biggest thing is it needs to contain lots of black and white. So it needs to be clean and simple looking. No photos, no borders, no colours. Just keep it extremely simple. Now, the reason being, there's a couple of reasons. The first thing is that your CV, if you're applying online, might be going through some software. Okay? Now, it's what they call it an ATS, or an applicant tracking software, right? And what it does is it's looking for keywords to shortlist your CV. So that system does not like photos and borders and all that kind of stuff, or tables. A lot of people use tables in their CV. Just keep it in a nice, simple Word document. After this masterclass, you're going to receive an email with my free guide, which will give you my top 10 tips to help you reshape your CV. So, you know, it's going to cover a template as well, and the instructions on what content to put into your CV. So you don't need to worry about taking notes very quickly here. Now, the first thing is just include your name, your mobile, and your email address. Don't worry about including postal addresses, physical addresses, photos. The other thing it's good to include is a LinkedIn address, because an employer is going to look you up. Okay, they're going to try and find you on LinkedIn, and you want to make sure that your CV matches your LinkedIn profile. Now, the reason why I say just put those personal details is so that you don't get discriminated around where you live, you know, where you're from, etc. Like, it's irrelevant. Okay, so we just want to keep things really factual for the employer. Now, in terms of the next piece is a profile summary. So it could be, people kind of call it lots of things. They call it a personal objective, a personal statement, a snapshot. It doesn't really matter what you call it. Now, that needs to be your sales pitch. If you're going to spend some time on your CV, spend it there. You need to be really clear around what it is that you're good at and the value. And what I suggest you do is that you pick 2 to 3 strengths and really describe how you do it well at that point. Okay? Because remember, if a recruiter's only got 6 to 10 seconds, they're going to read your name, your phone number, your email address, and then the profile section. And so you want it to draw in the reader, and then for the reader to then continue down into your work experience. All right? So really put some time and effort into that section. After that, you want to call out your skills. Now, a mistake that a lot of people make is that they just put statements. So they just put communication, okay, time management. You know, when I look at that, I kind of go, what does that even mean, right? How good are you at doing that? What does it look like? How do you even do that kind of stuff? So really put some thought around the description. So how are you communicating effectively? What does that even mean? One of the things is don't allow for any room for any interpretation, or for the person reading your CV to make any assumptions. All right, so you want to make it really clear, and you need to kind of put all the information there. The next step is your work experience. The biggest thing that should be in the biggest font is your job, is the role that you had. A big mistake that people make are they put the name of the employer. It's irrelevant, right? So if you were a marketing officer or you're a customer service representative, that needs to be in the biggest font. Then you have the organisation's name and then the date that you were there. Don't include where that was. So if you have just come to New Zealand and your last job was in India, don't put that it was in India. It's irrelevant, because once again, you're opening yourself up for discrimination. Okay, because it's where that business was located is irrelevant. What is important is the role that you had, the time frame you were there, and what you achieved. That's what's important to the recruiter. Okay, so if they want to validate that you worked there, they will do that through reference checking. Okay, you don't need to validate that on your CV. Underneath that, I encourage you to write a little description. So in the description, you want to talk about what was your role. So my role, if I was a call center representative, my role was I answered calls, inbound phone calls from customers, helping them with their phone accounts, so resolving their questions. At that point, you can include if you use certain systems. So if you used a special system, you might want to have it there. If you have got a special skill set and say you got a special technical skill that you have using, you would also describe it there as well. Then underneath that, you would put your achievements. All right, in bullet point. Now it's important to put it in bullet point because the eye likes to read things quickly. And I want to be able to skim your CV and get a really good feel quickly about the value that you're going to add. So bullet points, not big paragraphs, okay? It's really important. It's also important to be as specific as possible, so don't generalize. So if you've got some actual results, that you increase the sales from this percentage to this percentage. I achieve my sales targets consistently for 9 months of the year. Then that's the type of achievements you want to put down. Okay, so as specific as you can. The more specific you are, the more certain you come across, and those people who have the most certainty are the ones who come across with the authority and the expertise in the role that they're trying to apply for. Underneath your work experience, you then want to have your education. Now, if you've just left school, then that's when you would include your school, right, and education. If not, you should not be including anything about school. So if you're an adult and you've already been working, then you only include tertiary education. You don't need to include your subjects. It's basically your degree or your qualification, what institution and what was the date range. Very similar to your work experience. Now, if the role is calling specifically for a qualification or a degree, and you have that, then you would want to call that out in the cover letter so that they know that you have it, especially if they've said it's essential. If that is also the case, then I would bring that up the top, so just under your skills. If they're not, because a lot of jobs don't require qualifications, right? They just require experience, then keep it down the bottom because it's actually irrelevant. And you can add some interest. That is really a personal choice to whether you would like to add anything there. Now, you do not need to put references, okay? I encourage you to remove it because you do not want people contacting your referees without your knowledge. First of all, it's courtesy for you to go and contact those old employers to let them know you've been shortlisted and actually you're going to be, they want to do a reference and this is the role you've applied for. Now, why I encourage people to do that is because if I've applied for a call centre role and my referee that I'm going to be using was a role that I was an administrator in, all right, but in that administrator role, I also answered the telephone. When I go and ring my old boss, I say to them that this is the role I've applied for. I will then refresh their memory around what I was able to achieve when I worked for that person. And then they would ask me a little bit about the job. Now, when they are contacted, they are going to give they're going to provide a reference that is relevant for me answering the phone, not the administration. Okay, so they will emphasize that, oh, yeah, she was fantastic on the phone. She, we didn't have a lot of calls, but when she did answer the phone, her manner was exceptional. She would be amazing on the phone. But if you don't give your previous employer a heads up about that, they're not going to sell it, okay? Because remember, they are also trying to sell you to the potential employer. So remove your referees off your CV, and you don't even need to have references available on request, because everyone knows that you're going to have to provide references, right? Now, if you've applying online and they're asking, it's a compulsory field to put your references in, well, you're going to have no choice but have to provide them. Okay, so that's a little bit different, but on your CV, it's not actually required. Okay, do you want to page down, Gary, please? Now, I'm going to show you, this is in the guide that you're going to get. And so here's an example. It's just going to be your name, your email address, your mobile number, and your LinkedIn profile if you have one. And here I've described how to pull together a snapshot or a profile objective of what you need to include. Okay, so really spend the time brainstorming and reframing this part. It has to be catchy. Okay, Gary, do you want to page down? The next section is your job section, okay? And you can see here that the job title needs to be the biggest font, your company name, your date range. Now, date range must be month and year, okay? Don't put year and year. So I was in this role from 2016 to 2020. That's not good enough. Now, the reason being is that the employer is looking for gaps in your dates. Now, the reason why they're looking for gaps is to see if you've got something to hide, to see if you're unable to get a job for long periods of time. Now, if you've got gaps for legitimate reasons, because you were traveling, because you were looking after children, you were, you wanted time out, maybe you got sick, right? Then put the reasons down. Be transparent. It's important you're transparent, because if you're not, it just shows big gaps and you're going to be put in the no pile. So what I say to people is, when they tell me, I ask them, well, what were you doing during that period? Oh, well, I was looking after the children because, while I was looking for a job during summer and I wanted to have the summer off. And then I say to them, so, what else were you doing during that period? Oh, well, I used to help my husband with his business. I was doing his books, etc. So I say to them, well, then that's what you were doing as a job. Or I was doing Meals on Wheels as a volunteer. Well, that's what you were doing as a job. Just because it's not paid doesn't mean it's not a job. Okay, so put down everything that is you have done, whether you've been paid or not. It's irrelevant whether you received monetary in exchange. Okay, so if you're working for your local church, if you're doing, doing some volunteer work, or you're doing some training, or trying to upskill yourself while you're trying to look for a role, don't say you're unemployed, because you're not. You are unemployed, but you're still learning or doing some kind of work, and you're still adding value. So put that down instead. Okay, and you can see here the key achievements, all right? So in bullet points, and when you look at this, your eyes are literally, it's much easier to read. Now, the biggest thing is to use verbs, okay? So they're action words, and I know it's really hard, but it's just, if you just go into Google and Google verbs, they will give you a list. It's words like create, implement, developed, identified. Okay, so it's lots of action words are required. Gary, would you like to page down, please? So education, really don't list all the courses that you've done, because they're irrelevant, okay? So it's really the tertiary education or the courses that are relevant to the role that you're applying for. And just, it's as simple as university name, what was the qualification, and then the dates, okay? So just keep it consistent. And then personal interest, like I said, you can put whatever you'd like. That is really a personal personal preference. I personally don't have anything because I'm trying to limit my CV to 4 pages, so I don't really want to put any more on. All right, but if you've only got a CV that's 1 page, you might want to add it on. As a general rule, keep your CV to 2 to 4 pages and for the last 10 years. If you've got experience beyond 10 years that is really going to add value to the role that you're applying for, then include it. Okay, so it's a judgment call. But as a general rule, you don't need to go back to when you were 17 if you're now 45. All right, so last 10 years is always required. Okay, next page, Gary, please. These are just some real examples of some CVs that I've seen that aren't that great, okay, and where people were struggling to get shortlisted. And when you look at them, you can see that there's some inconsistencies here. Now, inconsistencies is the biggest downfall that let people down in terms of not being shortlisted. So, if we look here under the Burton and Field section, we've got some key achievements, but you can see that the layout is really inconsistent. Now, if I'm saying one of my strengths is attention to detail, then I can't have good attention to detail if the alignment's out. Okay, so you've got to be really careful how you present it. You can also see here the dates. The dates go from 2017 to 19. It doesn't tell me, did this person finish in December and then started in January? There could be a gap that they're trying to hide, right? So the employer's mind is always going to go to that negative kind of thing, that, there must be a reason here why they couldn't get a job, right? When it's not the case at all, okay? On the other one, you can see here, it's just really inconsistent. They're talking about the tasks, that they answered the phone calls, that they data entry. It doesn't tell me how well they did it. It didn't tell me that they've got a 99% accuracy rate. Okay, so I can see they can take bookings and stuff, but I don't know whether they're going to answer the phone nicely, right? So it's really important to add that value. If you'd like to page down, Gary, and I'll show you some more examples. Here is some statements. I call these I statements. So under the personal attributes, which people put under the skills section, this person's just made statements that they have a pleasing personality. I kind of go, who said? Did their husband say they had a pleasing personality, or their friends, or their mother? That they've got profound command and fluency in spoken English. Who said? Once again, right? So if you're going to make statements, back it up with evidence, okay? Back it up with evidence. So you can make a statement, but always back it up with something to demonstrate that it's not just your view on this, okay? If I look at this Dusted and Delicious, this person was a cook. So you can see here they did ordering of all the stocks, they did the cooking, and controlling of the stock levels. I don't even know how well they cooked, right? So they could be a terrible cook. I'm not going to employ them because I don't know what it's like. But what would be even more better to see here is that if they had described to me that they were a really good cook, and as a result of that, they would have repeat business, so the sales increased. Okay, so you can see on this one that on the right hand side here, we've got this person has listed their skills, their interests, their travel, and their volunteering experience. They then also had a component where they were talking about their work experience. Now, if you were to look at the CV, there were gaps everywhere, right? So as a recruiter, I couldn't even work out if they had any gaps because their stuff was everywhere. So making sure that, so this person did lots of traveling and work and volunteering experience. Now, all of that should have been in a chronological order under their work experience. So even if you've got a paid employment job and then you're looking at the next one was a volunteer job, you'd put that straight underneath. So in an order of your latest job versus your oldest job. So this is an example of someone who had minimal work experience but had done lots of volunteer and travel. Now, we were able to showcase all those experiences and learnings under the work experience section,
and within 4 weeks she was able to get a job. So it's just really important to not forget about any volunteer work that you've done, okay? Even if it's not official volunteer and it's just because you help at your local church, you can still include that, okay? So it's really important. Like, even if you're looking after someone else's child during the day and it's an informal, but it's something you're doing regularly, you can still have that as a job, okay? So it's really important to kind of widen your view on what can be included.
Okay. So should we go to the next one and then we wrap up for the Q&A? Yeah.
Absolutely. So what I've done is I've put together a career coaching program which gets you ready for a job, right through from helping you write your CV and a cover letter through to interviews as well, because there needs to be the alignment between all three. Because there's no point in having a very good CV and then you rock up to the interview and you don't know how to articulate. In New Zealand, we use what we call behavioural-based interviews. And now these interviews are, the interviewers after a specific example, they're expecting it to be in a certain format as well. And they are, the reason why they're asking you in this way is because they want to understand and get you to provide that you've demonstrated the competencies that they're looking for. Now, I am running an interview masterclass. It runs for a couple of hours on next week on the 25th. So you're more than welcome to come to that. That is a price of $29. It's very interactive and we're going to be role playing. So we're going to be, you will see people and you can volunteer yourself that I will be asking you a question, you provide me with an answer, and then I'm going to give constructive feedback to show you how to take the answer from good to great,
Okay.
and the things that you need to learn. That will be done via Zoom. Now, my programs, I either do it through group coaching or one-to-one. Essentially, the key difference is you either have me all to yourself in a private session, or you have to share me. And the reason why I've done that is so that, one is if you are wanting to have me all to yourself, then that is a much higher price, versus I've tried to make this as cost effective as possible for people, and so I also run the group coaching. I do limit the group coaching to 10 people, and I've got a session that's, we've got a group starting next week on the 24th. And we run that every week, and that runs for 4 weeks. So it's an hour session. So you're going to, from my career coaching programs, the output at the end of the program, not only will you have a revised CV that's ready to go, you will have a cover letter all ready to go. You will have interview answers. You'll know what to expect. We would have role played an interview as well. So I will take you through a practice run. And you'll have questions to ask in the interview, so that it demonstrates that you're all prepared. Now, one of the biggest outcomes I find that people have is the confidence. The confidence shifts because they have the certainty around, they know what to expect, they have all the tools all done for them. I've told them what to say, how to say it, and we've practiced as well. So the confidence levels increase something incredibly, and what that does is that the person's motivation shifts as well, because they start realizing that actually they can do this. I also do some mindset coaching and some help you understand that if you get a no, it's not a personal attack. That the no, there's a reason. And I go through that as well. Okay. So because a lot of people take the no's and get really disheartened, and then they start getting depressed about it. But I show you how to take those no's as an opportunity to keep moving forward.
Yeah. So, Kristin, thank you so much. I think let's quickly, we have a little time left for the Q&A. So we can do that. So yes, thank you for sharing your details. So to all the attendees, that's her email and phone number. We're happy to reach out to her.
Absolutely.
So to all the attendees, if you have any questions, you can post them in the Q&A panel here, and we'll keep throwing them off to Kristin. So till we have some questions, I have a few which I can start the ball rolling.
Okay, lovely. Thank
Yes.
you, Gary.
So yeah, you raised some very important points. One thing that we see with a lot of migrants is that they have come to New Zealand. They have maybe done 10 years of work in their home country, and they might be in between careers when they shift to New Zealand. So
Yes.
a very important point which you said is not to mention the name of the country of where your last job was.
Yeah.
I think that really resonates with me. But also tell us how, if we have had some substantial experience in other industries, because many times you have to shift your industry when you find a job in New Zealand. How do we do that?
Yeah, so that's a great question, Gary. And so what I encourage people to do is in each of your roles, you've got transferable skills. Okay, so it's really important. So when you're applying for a role, what I encourage you to do is you take the job advert, you get a highlighter pen, and you highlight all the keywords that they're looking for. So all the key skills. And what you need to do is you need to make sure that those key skills are evident in your CV. All right. So what I encourage you to do is you create a kind of a baseline CV, and then with every job you apply for, you just tweak it just a little wee bit, making sure that the keywords are in your job description. Now, if you're going from say a finance role, and if you say you're a finance manager back in India, yet in New Zealand you are wanting to get into, you're just wanting any kind of corporate job, right? So you might want to start off in administration because you just want to learn the culture of New Zealand and understand how the workplace works. Well, then what we would need to do is we wouldn't necessarily focus on all the finance aspect of what you did in India, but more around some of the soft skills. So how did you communicate? How did you get your achievements? How did you manage your time? How did you manage your projects? What was your attention to detail? What was your quality? So looking at what they're looking for in that job and extracting from your previous roles what elements of that you've done as well, and including it.
Okay, thank you for that. Yeah, Lena, you can
Okay.
take the next question. Yeah.
Yeah. So Kristin, we have got one question from one of the participants. They're asking, how do you prevent repeating yourself if you need to back up your skills with evidence and examples? Then this is also an achievement as part of your work history.
Sorry, what was the question, Lena?
The question is, how do you prevent repeating yourself if you
Yes.
need to back up your skills with evidence and examples? Then this is also an achievement as part of your work history.
Yeah, great question. Great question. So in your CV, you're not going to go into all the nitty-gritty detail, right? So you're going to give an example of your achievement at a high level. In an interview, you're going to go into the detail around the real how did you do that? What was your thought process? Now, the easiest way is to get a selection of achievements is to brainstorm. So what I encourage you to do is to go back through all your jobs and you brainstorm. 3 questions that you need to ask yourself. What were you proud of? Okay, so what were you proud of? What great feedback did you have from customers, colleagues, or managers? And third, what did you create, identify, implement, or develop? And brainstorm using those 3 questions. And then that way you'll have a selection of achievements, picking some key ones to put in your CV, and then saving some the best ones for your interview. Now you can have an achievement in your CV and then talk about it in your interview, because it's going to be at a different level, right? In an interview, you're going to go into depth about that. Whereas in a CV, it's just going to be a little bullet point, right? So it could be that you achieve the sales target for 9 out of the 12 months, all right?
Yeah.
Whereas in an interview, you're going to talk about how did you do that?
Yeah.
Okay. What was your approach and what was your thought process?
Okay.
Right. So thank you so much for that, Kristin. There is one more question. Should I put my skills in bullet points in my cover letter, or is it okay to put some skills that are relevant to the job even if you don't have the skills?
So what I encourage you, don't put bullet point skills in your cover letter. Remember, you need to back things up with evidence. All right. So they're what I call I statements. I'm good at this and I'm good at that.
Yeah.
Right. They don't tell anyone anything. And what it actually does is it comes across that you're blowing your own trumpet.
Yes.
And you can be overconfident. Right. So nobody likes to be like that. Whereas if you back it up with evidence, you're being really grounded and really humble about things, because you're saying, you know, this is what I'm good at and this is how I do it. So you're really showcasing that you're going to add that value. Now, in a cover letter, you really want to have an introduction.
Yeah.
Okay. So why are you applying for the role? You know, do you want a new challenge? Have you recently been made redundant and you're actively seeking permanent employment? Then you want to have 2 to 3 paragraphs, no more, of the key skills that they're looking for in that job advertisement. Right. And that's when you talk about those key skills. So you're talking about the skill and then you're backing it up with evidence. Yeah. And then at the end, it's a little convincing kind of paragraph around, hey, I'm the one you've been looking for. You should I'd love to talk to you more about this. Okay.
Yeah.
So definitely not bullet points. Remember that I statements. You must back things up with evidence.
Right. Kristin, we got one more question, which is actually very important for all of us as migrants. So the question is, should we put what type of visa in the top section if it is one that can work in NZ like resident?
Yeah, look, I get this question all the time, actually. And what I say to people is that you must be transparent.
Right.
Okay. You're not in the game to deceive people. You're in the game to be really transparent, because that shows your honesty and your integrity as well.
Yeah.
So if you have a visa that allows you to already work, that is not conditional on getting employment, then you don't need to tell anyone, right?
Right.
Doesn't matter. You've already got the visa. But if you require a visa, if you require a job in order to secure your working visa, and that's what you're actively seeking, then you need to call that out. Now, what I suggest to people that they do is that they call it out in their cover letter. Yeah. So I'm actively seeking work, and as a condition of this, I'm then able to secure a visa, right? And I'm prepared to invest in this and go through all the requirements, etc. But if you've already got a visa that allows you to work, because maybe you already had employment, right? And now you're just looking for another job, then you don't need to say it. Like, it doesn't actually matter. Okay. Right. Yeah. You might need to fill it in on an application form. So if that's the case, then obviously you need to be honest and put it there. Otherwise, it doesn't need to be on your CV or your cover letter.
Right. One question which I would like to ask you is, Kristin, is it okay to hide your New Zealand driving license which you are holding? Like, if I'm holding restricted driving license, because if you look for the jobs, sometimes they ask like you should have valid driving license. Like in immigration jobs also, though driving license is not required for that, because driving is not necessary in that. So I'm holding restricted driving license, and if I hide that I'm not holding any driving license, so does that put any impact on the application?
So if the job requires you to drive, and they want to have they've mentioned that they want you to have a clean driver's license, then as long as you've got a restricted license, it should be okay. What you might have to answer is in a job on an actual application. Like, I wouldn't be putting it on your CV or your cover letter.
Yeah.
However, if the job doesn't require you to drive, they don't need to know if you've got a license or no license.
Absolutely, yeah.
That's nothing to do with it. You've got to really include the information that's relevant. Okay, so If they've asked for something specifically,
Mhm.
then and they've said that it's essential, then you need to really include it and make sure it's called out so that you can showcase that you've got that.
Mhm.
But if it's irrelevant, don't include it. It's less information is better, right? So this is, sometimes people fall into the trap of over providing too much information,
Yes.
and then what it does is it makes you open to having your CV put in the no pile, right? Because they get too much information and they go, oh, well, that person, has only doesn't even have a license. It's irrelevant.
Okay, lovely. So I also have a quick question, and in case to the attendees, we still have another 7 minutes to go. If you have
Right.
questions, please don't be shy. Post them anonymously, or you can you can even raise your hand, and we can get you live to ask the question directly from Kristin. One point, Kristin, which you said is about not having colorful CVs. Now, this is something which there's a trend which I've been seeing on LinkedIn and
Yes.
Facebook, in the past few years, that there are a lot of professionals, graphic designers, and those companies as well, which say, okay, come to us, we'll make you a nice, jazzy, templated CV, which looks nice and bright, and you're very tempted to do that. So I really, that point came to my mind. And when you said that, then that CV may not go well with automated software. So
Correct.
can you elaborate a little bit on that? How do we decide? Because some jobs, for example, if you are a graphic designer and you're applying for a graphic design job or some creative job, you may want to leverage your creativity as well.
Correct. Now, that is a very
How do
good
we
point.
make a choice in that situation?
Yeah. So as a general rule, you should try and keep your CV as simple looking as possible. But if you are a creative person and maybe you've got a creative portfolio, my client recently, he is like a technical kind of craftsman making stuff out of metal.
Okay.
And so what he did is that he put together a Wix website, just basic page of all his creativity and his designs. And what we did is that we kept his CV nice and simple, and on his cover letter we included the link for his website, so that they can go and see all his work.
Okay.
Right. The thing is that I always encourage people to format their CVs to a PDF version as well. So their cover letter and a Word in their CV, always save it as a PDF version and submit the PDF. Now, the reason being is that if you're uploading it to one of those softwares systems, that you're reducing the risk of the formatting going a little bit skewed. If you upload a Word document, it can look really ugly and it gets all skewed. Okay, so definitely a PDF.
Yes.
I spoke with a very creative marketing lady the other day, and she had a very colourful kind of CV. Now, look, it's a personal preference. I didn't tell her, hey, look, you should remove it. She wanted it in there, but what we did is that we just simplified it a little bit more so it's easy on the eye. That's the biggest thing, is that if you look at it, you want it to be easy on the eye. So what I always encourage people to do is that you update your CV and then you get some feedback from a couple of people. All right. So go to your employer, ask some people who are professional workers to give you some feedback. You want them to, 1, give you feedback, 2, check for errors, right? And making sure it's nice and consistent. So I always encourage, go and get 2 to 3 pieces of feedback, and then submit the final version. All right? Because I know myself, if I've updated my CV, what I do is I sleep on it, and then I go and review it the next day, and I'm like, I found an error. All right? Even I do that.
So it does. It does happen.
We're all human. We all make mistakes. And your brain is very clever, and it starts to remember things. So If I find I sleep on it and then I do my final check and then I would submit it at that point.
I think we have more quickly, if we can take those questions, Lena.
Yeah.
We're running out of
So
time.
one question is, should I mirror words used in the GD as much as possible that looks a lot of repetition, or use a synonymous word for some areas? Does it have an impact in ATS if you use it a lot?
Basically, if you repeat the keywords a lot, which is in the job description.
Yeah. What I say to people is that if I'm a manager, all right, so what I do when I'm recruiting, and I recruit a lot, so I look at the job description, I then take out the key aspects of that job description and I create an ad. So what I say to people is that the work's already been done for you, all right? Look at the job description. The job description gives you an understanding of what to expect in the role and what you can imagine yourself doing and delivering. But focus on the job advert, because the hard work's already been done for you. They've already called out who they're looking for, what they're looking for, and what does it mean. So really emphasize the stuff that's in the job advert and making sure that there's the similar themed words in your CV.
Right.
Okay. So for an example is that if I'm if I was going for a leadership role, right, and let's just say I'm an operational manager, and I am now going to apply for an operations manager role, I would make sure the word operations was everywhere. Okay.
Yep.
So what I say to people is make sure the theme is there. So you have a theme through your whole CV. So for instance, if I'm going for a call center job, I would want to emphasize all the phone work that I've done. If I'm going for an administrative role, I would emphasize all the administration achievements that I've done, and making sure I've got the word administration throughout my CV.
Okay.
So you're just tweaking it just a tad.
Yeah. Quickly, just last two questions we'll take. One is that Lena is asking that agency, you said that you should submit CV in the PDF format.
Yes.
She's saying a lot of agencies want us to send the CV in the Word document. So that's one. And second related is that what is the New Zealand recruitment practice? Do they wait for all CVs to be submitted at the end of the close date to review, or do they review the CVs as they come in?
Okay, so for the first question, if the recruitment agency has asked for a Word document, provide a Word document, right? It's the same thing as if you're applying online and they ask for all your references, then you need to do it, okay? So you need to follow what they're asking for. If you're applying for a job and they've just said to provide a CV and a cover letter, then you would provide it in a PDF format, okay, to make sure that nothing kind of goes out of alignment. The practice, most of the time, and I am generalizing here, but most of the time the job will close and then the manager will look at the pool of applicants. In some cases they might start shortlisting early if they've got high demand for the role, or if they've got multiple roles. So if I'm recruiting and I've got 5 jobs that I'm trying to fill of the same type, as I'm receiving CVs I might start shortlisting. Okay, so the rule of the thumb is that always have a CV updated and ready to go. Like, don't leave it to the last minute and then you've got to work through it all, because you'll just create a whole heap of anxiety and stress. You want to keep it updated and add to it regularly. So if you go to work tomorrow and you do something amazing or get some absolutely fantastic feedback from a customer, run home and go and update the CV, right? Make sure it's always there, because if I have to sit here and think about what I did 5 years ago, I would really struggle, right? I can't even remember what I had for dinner 3 nights ago, let alone what I did 5 years ago. And remember, you're needing to find specific examples. So, you can't generalize. So it's important that you update this just throughout. And, as you remember things, a CV is a living document, is the way I look at it, right? It's your gateway to your future. So it's important. It's an important task. Like, don't kind of think it's just an admin task, because it's actually not. It's one of the most important things that you'll ever work on.
Okay. And then quickly the next question, and which someone has just posted a related one. So what's the practice in recruitment in New Zealand? Do they wait for all CVs to come in before they process, or they process as you go? And that's why someone is asking, really, does it matter if like when a job is advertised and there are 4 weeks to go, do I apply today or apply in the last date? So does that really matter?
No, it doesn't matter. But what I would say is get your application in as early as possible.
Okay.
Because you if they are getting a good pool of applicants, let's just say they've had an overwhelming response and they're already at 200 applicants on day 4, then they might close the job off sooner than they anticipated. So what I would encourage you to do, get in early. Okay. If you're also one of the first CVs, you're almost setting the bar as well, right? So, you know, you don't want to be the 200 right CV, right? You want to be one of the first 10, right? Because then it will, if I'm reading them, I'll be like, that first one right at the beginning, that was amazing. I'm going to like look at that one.
Okay.
Right.
Lovely. So I think
Thank
we can, Lena, we can have a vote of
Thank
thanks.
you so much, Kristin, for sharing wonderful tips with us and with all the participants. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you then. And we'll call it a wrap. Thank you. Bye-bye, everyone.
Thank you. Bye-bye.